Have you ever considered the great questions that have stirred the minds of philosophers through the centuries? Across cultures and generations, thinkers like Plato, Augustine, Descartes, and Kierkegaard have wrestled with the same longing to understand the meaning of life. Why is it that despite all our progress in science and knowledge, the question still lingers? Why are we here? And what's it all for? Philosophers have searched tirelessly, reasoning through existence, beauty, morality, and purpose. Some appeal to logic, others to intuition or the deep emotions written on the human heart. And yet all, in their own way, point to a truth beyond human wisdom alone. The hunger for meaning is not just intellectual, it's deeply personal. We're not merely seeking answers, we're seeking the one who has the answers and who is the answer. Today, I want to invite us into that same search. Let's sit with the questions and ask, could it be that the very longing for truth, beauty, and meaning is a clue? Could our hunger for these things point beyond ourselves to something or someone much bigger, not to randomness, but to a creator who planted these questions in us to draw us to himself? What if the philosopher's restless searching wasn't a sign of futility, but an echo of a divine voice, one that still speaks to every seeking heart today? The Apostle Paul, standing before a group of skeptical thinkers in ancient Athens, said these words in Acts chapter 17, verses 24 through 28. "The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands, as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being." Paul doesn't insult the intelligence of his ancient Greek Ivy League scholar equivalents. He appeals to their intelligence. He says, look around you. You're already reaching for something, and maybe for someone that you instinctively know is there. And so it is with us today. Let's start with what we see. Scientists across the different fields, whether cosmology, biology, physics, or chemistry, continue to uncover evidence that points not to chaos, but to incredible and intricate fine-tuning. The constants and quantities of the universe, things like the gravitational constant, the cosmological constant, the strong and weak nuclear forces, are all set with mind-boggling precision. If any one of these were altered even slightly, life as we know it would be impossible. Astrophysicist Hugh Ross has pointed out that the odds of all these constants being perfectly set up to support life is like 1 chance in 10 to the 138th power. To put that into perspective, that's a number so large that it defies imagination. It's a 1 with 138 zeros behind it. Far more reasonable is the idea that an intelligence calibrated it all. Francis Collins, who's the former head of the Human Genome Project, echoes this in his book called The Language of God. Collins, who was once an atheist himself, describes how the intricate language of DNA, 3 billion letters spelling out the code of life in every cell, awakened in him a deep realization. He said, "I cannot see how nature could have created itself. Only a supernatural force that is outside of space and time could have done that." Likewise, Jack Collins, my former professor at Covenant Seminary, no relation to Francis, reminds us that belief in God is not a leap into the absurd, but a step into the most reasonable explanation for the world we actually inhabit. In his writings, Dr. Collins shows how Scripture welcomes rational inquiry and honest wrestling. As he wrote in his book on faith and science, faith, according to the Bible, is not a leap in the dark. It's a warranted trust, a trust based on good and sufficient reasons. And yet the fine-tuning of the cosmos is just the beginning. We also have to grapple with an even greater event, the resurrection of Jesus Christ. When skeptics challenge Christianity, they often begin by dismissing the resurrection as myth. But the historical evidence tells a different story. The Gospels, written within the lifetime of eyewitnesses, testify consistently to the empty tomb. Women are recorded as the first witnesses, a detail unlikely to be invented in a culture where a woman's testimony was considered unreliable and not even admissible in a court of law. The apostles, once terrified and in hiding, suddenly became bold proclaimers of Christ's resurrection. Nearly all of them went to their deaths, some by crucifixion, some by stoning, some by beheading, refusing to renounce what they had seen with their own eyes. People might die for something they believe to be true, but no one dies for something they know to be a lie. If the apostles had stolen Jesus' body, as some alleged, if they had fabricated the story, sooner or later someone would have broken under torture or fear, and yet they all held firm to the very end. As Bishop N.T. Wright has said, the resurrection is the only way to explain why Christianity began and why it took the shape it did. Add to this the transformation of enemies into ambassadors. Saul of Tarsus, once a zealous persecutor of Christians, breathing threats and violence against the followers of Jesus, became Paul the Apostle after a blinding encounter with the risen Christ on the road to Damascus, as Luke, the physician and historian, records for us in Acts chapter 9. In a moment, everything changed for Paul. His life, his loves, his loyalties, his vision of God and of himself was turned inside out and upside down. The one who once sought to destroy the church became its most tireless builder. The one who once saw Christ as a curse came to proclaim Christ as the hope of the world. The one who despised Gentiles became the apostle and ambassador of Christ to the Gentiles. His heart was captured by grace, his future repurposed for the very cause he once tried to extinguish. More than this, Paul became the inspired writer of much of the New Testament, penning letters that would shape the church, humanity, and the world for all generations. Among these are Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon. Each one bearing witness to the miracle that a former enemy of Christ could become one of his most eager and devoted spokespersons. And that story has been repeated countless times since through other lives. Across 2 millennia, ordinary men and women have encountered the living Christ and been radically changed. Hardened cynics have become tender-hearted. Addicts have been set free. The proud have become humble. The fearful have become courageous. And perhaps most stunning of all is the way Jesus produces radical forgiveness. In a world that often prizes vengeance and retaliation and cancellation, Jesus' followers are taught to love their enemies, to pray for those who persecute them, to forgive 70 times, 7 times. Malcolm Gladwell once reflected on the extraordinary forgiveness shown by the Amish community after the tragedy at Nickel Mines, where a gunman took the lives of several of their children. Instead of seeking revenge, the Amish chose to forgive the shooter, even attending his funeral and offering comfort to his grieving family. It was a forgiveness so countercultural, so inexplicable, that it caught the attention of the watching world. A forgiveness that could only be explained by the presence and power of Christ. Stories like this are not normal. They're not explainable by sociology or psychology alone. They point to a supernatural grace at work. So when we ask whether God is real, we're not asking an abstract question. We're asking a question that touches on the very fabric of reality, on the deepest longings, hurts, doubts, and fragilities of the human heart, and on the best explanation for the universe we inhabit. Paul told the Athenians that God is not far from any one of us, and that's still true today. The fine-tuning of the cosmos, the moral law written on our hearts, the historical resurrection of Jesus, the transformation of billions of lives, all of it points to a God who not only exists, but who seeks relationship with us. And you might say, but I still have doubts. And if you do say that, that's okay. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. Willful, stubborn unbelief is. Doubt, honestly faced, can be the doorway to deeper trust. Thomas doubted, Peter stumbled, Paul wrestled. What matters is not having every question answered, but being willing to keep seeking. God never promises to satisfy our curiosity, but he does promise to satisfy our hearts. He never promises to give us answers to our questions, but he does promise to give us himself. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart, he says to us in Jeremiah 29, verse 13. If you're wondering how to start here. Slow down, look around, ask your hard questions, and then listen. Listen to the whisper of creation. Listen to the ache inside your chest. Listen to the witness of history. And most of all, listen to the voice of Jesus Christ who still speaks. Listen to him especially in the scriptures, where his words are living and active. Listen for him in the gathered church, where he has promised to be present among his people. Listen to him in prayer, where your own heart is laid before the one who knows and loves you best. And take his invitation seriously, as if it is intended for you, because it is. Jesus invites you in this way. Come to me, all who are weary and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. The evidence for God is not only written in the stars, it is also written in the scars. The scars on the hands of Jesus, stretched wide in love for you and me. In him, you will find not only rational answers, but relational grace. Not only evidence for your mind, but a home for your heart. Not only truth you can trust, but a love you can rest in forever. If this was helpful to you, please subscribe, like, comment, and share with friends or family who might also benefit. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.